Welcome everybody. My name is Helen Kenyon. I am the chair of the People Development Special Interest Group. And with me today, I've got Ricky Bartlett from CBRE. He does all their stuff around AI. So he's our expert for today, and he's going to run us through some training in a short while. So welcome to Putting AI to Work in FM. I will just go through some quick housekeeping for you. Obviously, because of the nature of the call, any questions and stuff that you have, if you can put them in the Q&A section as we go along, and then we'll come to those at the end. Anything that Ricky doesn't get the chance to answer, we will make sure is responded to afterwards, and we'll send all of those answers out to everybody. The CPD code will also be at the end of the presentation. You'll be able to take that and upload it into your CPD tracker, and there will be a link to IWFM to enable you to do that. So a little bit about people development. We are a relatively small committee at the moment. We are looking for new members to help us sort of broaden our reach and have a bit more impact within FM. You can follow us on LinkedIn. There is a QR code there if you'd like to scan it. We have a page which we're working on putting more updates, some new materials as they come through on legislation, any kind of sort of learning and development that we come across. And we also have our people development page on IWFM as well, which is the upper QR code that you can scan. If you're interested in either being part of the committee, have some ideas for events or things that you'd like us to start doing, please do reach out either to the group page or to one of the committee members that are listed there. We're happy to hear your ideas and thoughts on how we can improve what we offer to IWFM members and the wider FM community. So just a quick overview of some upcoming sessions that we've got. So in partnership with Midlands Region, we have an all-day conference next week on Wednesday, the 15th of July. This is specific around building FM leaders. We tend to promote people that are very good at their job, but we don't necessarily give them the skills that they need to become actual leaders. So this all-day conference is aimed at addressing that. If you're interested in attending, there are a few spaces left. If you go onto the IWFM community events page, you're able to sign up there, and there are some discounts for MOD and students if you're interested. We also have some other sessions coming up in webinar form. We have one in early October around PFI handback. That will be a panel with people that have been through the process. We'll be sharing some of their sort of experiences, lessons learned. So for those that are in the PFI world, that could be really helpful for you. And also Bill Gabriel, our treasurer, will be doing a session on fire risk assessments and kind of what you need to know around those. That will be in person in Birmingham at the Maritime offices on the 17th of September. Keep an eye out on the communities page and more to follow on that. Just a reminder for any of you that have joined that aren't IWFM members, there are a lot of benefits involved. These slides will be available after as well, so if you want to have more of a look at them, you will be able to. But that just gives you a quick outline of what the membership benefits are. And we have a couple of slides coming up now that will sort of point you to some other resources that are available through IWFM. So the new Information Management Good Practice Guide is available. If you're a member, that's free. You can go on and download it, and it gives you some essentially best practice that you might not be aware of or you might be able to implement in your own workplace. And we're also doing a piece around sort of tech survival and AI at the moment. There will be a good practice guide that's coming out on AI from our technical services SIG soon, so keep an eye out for that as well. And as always, we are people development, so it is all about sort of trying to help people and guide people through their careers. IWFM do offer a mentoring service, so if it's something that you're interested either as a mentee or a mentor, you can go onto the IWFM website and gain more information. I think that's the last of the slides that I have. So I'm going to pass you over to Ricky now, who's going to get to the gist of what everybody's here for, and that's how you can use AI to help you in everyday FM activity.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Helen, and good afternoon to everybody. So just very, very quickly, a little bit about me. So my name's Ricky Bartlett. I'm the UK lead of AI and automation in CBRE, Building Operations and Experience. in the UK. So look, my job involves, I've been in the industry for coming up to 20 years now in FM. I was originally operational, but I now work in embedding AI into FM. So I build business cases, develop AI solutions, deliver AI projects. Also a member of IWFM and part of the IWFM Technology Special Interest Group underneath Gordon Mitchell. So look, thank you for attending today. I know it's very warm and probably everybody had a questionable night's sleep last night, but I appreciate you being in attendance. And look, really today's session is about cutting through the hype and really getting to some practical applications of artificial intelligence as a technology. You know, there's lots of interest and there's lots of hype out there, and there's lots of solutions being pushed around, but really this is around ensuring that people come away from this call with a level of understanding around how to apply AI for your own personal productivity on a day-to-day basis. There's a few things we're going to cover off. Firstly, we're going to talk about the different AI solutions that we've got. We've got some, categories of the way that we talk around AI. Then really important, when to use different AI solutions. We're going to be talking about how important it is to ground everything in problem statements. How to use different AI technologies, we'll touch on that as well. Then we're just going to touch on AI strategy, how to look at artificial intelligence and in the fact that there's a difference between personal productivity tools, as in empowering your employees. There is a difference between that and having an AI strategy. So we'll touch on some of that. And then we're going to go into the live demo. So I'm going to have to flick around sharing screens. So I'll to make sure that we've got it live up on screen. And then we'll be working through live demonstration to show you how you can use AI assistants in order to analyze data, improve data, write reports and such like. There's going to be some questions at the end. If you do have any questions, as Helen said, if you can please drop them in the chat, and if we've got time, we'll get around to them. So without further ado, we're going to touch on the three, the way that I look at artificial intelligence is in three main categories. Now, there's plenty of hype and there's plenty of noise out there with regards to AI, but ultimately I boil them down into three different buckets. We've got AI assistants, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. An AI assistant is known as a horizontal technology, as in it is a general purpose, jack of all trades AI tool. We've got Claude, which is what I'm going to be working in today. We've got ChatGPT, you've got Google Gemini, there's Microsoft Copilot, the X have got XAI. There's plenty of these different AI assistants available on the market. And they're, as I said, they're general purpose tools, so they're jack of all trades. You've then got AI agents. So an AI agent is an AI which is going to do a specific job for you. That's when we get into the point of it actually resolving a specific problem. With AI agents, we educate it. It can follow a process. It's got the knowledge. It understands what it's going to be doing. So it's going to be solving a specific problem. And we'll touch on some examples of those. And then we've got AI for data. Certainly in FM, a huge opportunity to use AI to analyze data. As anybody who will know, as an FM or working in the industry, buildings produce and portfolios produce an incredible amount of data. And if you think about the amount of data that one particular FM might have in a building, that might be BMS data, operational data, he's got asset data, he's got data within his service sheets, there might be finance performance data, billing applications and service charges. We're living in a world of data. AI is an incredible tool that you can use in order to analyze the consistency and the quality of the data. You can improve the consistency and the quality of your data, and you can garner insights from the consistency and quality of your data. So, massive opportunity to use that to help you out on a day-to-day basis. But I'll touch through some more specific examples as we go. So look, firstly, AI assistants, and this is what we're going to be working with today. AI assistants is a conversational solution. We speak to an AI assistant. You speak to ChatGPT, you speak to Claude, you speak to Gemini, as if it were a co-worker, as if it was somebody working for you. You ask a question and you get a response. It's helped to guide and advise. You can use it to do specific tasks. So it's a conversational solution. Obviously, we can upload documents to it. We can get it to read and write documents for us. We can get it to create different outputs for us. We can get it to create Excel spreadsheets, to create Word documents, to create PowerPoint presentations. But it's your general purpose AI solution, is your AI assistant. Then we get into AI agents. A lot of excitement online with regards to AI agents and the potential applications of AI agents everywhere, really, but specifically to FM. We use AI agents when we've got a specific job that we want it to do. And I've got some examples here on the screen. So, managing your help desk, chasing your reactive work orders end to end, advising your teams on the contents of an O&M manual for a building, or running a weekly PPM reports. You can build agents or buy agents which do each one of these tasks. And we'll talk about how to determine which one to go after when we look at some of the business cases. But ultimately, you can build an agent to do pretty much any digital task. If a task is digital, you can build an agent to be able to do so. If it's a repeatable task, if it's something that you're doing daily or something you're doing weekly or something you're doing, a repeatable admin, it's a really good opportunity to start thinking about how you can use AI agents to automate that. And as I've said, we're living in a world of data. Certainly in the industry, we've got huge amounts of data. A BMS produces, if you think about an average FM on a site, a BMS will produce thousands, if not tens of thousands of data points a day. That is a huge amount of information to try and consume. If you think about your help desk data or your operational data, you've got data around the performance of your suppliers. You've got data around the performance of your sites. You've got KPIs or SLA data. So, any CAFM system, you're going to be able to download lots of data. So huge amounts of information available in our CAFM platforms as well. And, the bedrock for the industry is asset data. Every building, every portfolio should have an asset list. You can use AI in order to analyze your asset data as well, which we will be doing today. And then, something to be considered around service sheets. So we've got structured data and unstructured data. Structured data, I would say anything that's in an Excel, in a Microsoft Excel, or a table, tabular form, we can consider that as structured data. But obviously that's not how the real world operates all the time. We have loads of information in unstructured data, and service sheets are a really good example of where we've got information, important information in an unstructured format. So I'll give you an example. If you took 5 service sheets from 5 different suppliers and you put them side by side, invariably the format of those would be completely different. You might have a written service sheet and someone's taken a photo. You might have a service sheet which is structured really nicely. You might have one which is a bit messier. All of that is unstructured data, but all of that is important data in the context of FM and specifically engineering. AI is amazing at making sense of unstructured data, pulling out all of the salient information from our service sheets, pulling out all our salient information from fire risk assessments or any reports that we might have, consultants' reports, and making sense of it. I'm sure there's many more examples of that, but there's some lots of value to be had in analysing the data of this type. Okay, when to use different AI tools. I think why it's important to talk about this because invariably when mistakes are made with the introduction of AI solutions, it's because we're trying to make a solution fit to a problem. Or even worse, we haven't even considered the problem in the first instance. So when AI goes wrong is when you just want to push a solution in and you haven't really considered the purpose of that solution. And that's where you will find yourself introducing technologies that actually don't really solve a problem and therefore don't really solve any value. So it's really important to ensure that you ground your decision making in what AI tools to use in the form of a business case. It doesn't have to be a massively complicated business case, but it needs to be structured sufficiently enough so that you understand the problem that you're solving. Is it a financial problem? Is it a problem with regards to the quality of your delivery? Is it a problem with regards to the consistency of your work? Have you got a reputational problem? Is it a client satisfaction or occupier satisfaction or employee satisfaction problem? Like, what is the nature of the problem that you're wanting to solve? And also, how big is the problem? What does it impact? Is it a financial impact? Like I said, is it impacting the reputation, the consistency? And the stage that you go through, the more time that you can spend in really understanding the problem, and the more time that you can spend in really understanding the impact that that problem has on you or your organization or your wider team, the more time that you spend on that, the greater level of understanding that you have around that problem, but also the greater appreciation that you will have for solving it. And if you, the best solutions that we've introduced is where we've found a problem and we've really understood how that problem affects maybe every function, every department, a number of different stakeholders. It might affect your executive team. It might also affect the teams on the ground. You know, people might really dislike the problem itself, which is always really valuable. The more time you can spend in this space, the better. And also, it's really important for you to eliminate any assumptions that you make. So time always well spent. Sometimes I might spend months just, understanding the nature of the problem. And only when you've done that very necessary step, can you then consider what solution to introduce? Can you then consider how to solve that? And let's say, for example, that you've got a problem which is analysing your help desk data or analysing large amounts of data. If you spent lots of time in the problem, you'll understand the size of it. And you may also have an appreciation for the fact that this problem affects an entire account or a number of buildings. If you then have learned that, you know that you need a solution which can analyse 100,000 rows of data because you spent enough time really understanding the problem. So when you go into selecting your solutions, you know that you're looking for something that can analyse at least 100,000 rows of data. And also, you're going to have an appreciation for the fact that you're going to want to learn something from that data. So the question you're going to ask of the solution is, how does the solution tell me what to act upon? So it's any time spent in understanding the problem and developing that business case, even if high level, is always really time well spent. And look, just a bit of a guide, a really high level guide around when to use each of these AI solutions or when to use different solutions. So we've got AI assistants are really good for when you're buried in repeatable admin. And I'm sure, in the industry, in FM, we've got lots of repeatable admin. We've got service charge allocation, you'll have audits on a periodic basis, there's going to be billing applications, you're going to have monthly tenant meetings, there's going to be minutes out the back of that, you're going to have annual occurrences which are going to happen. If we're in a world of repeatable admin and it's taking up a lot of our time, then AI assistants are really good to enable you to lift your productivity and reduce the amount of time that you spend on that repeatable admin. And then, let's lean into agents a little bit. If a process is laborious and inconsistent, let's go back to maybe that help desk. You've got some inconsistencies in the way that your help desk operates potentially. It's a good opportunity for you to consider maybe getting some AI agents to have a look at that. AI agents will give you a repeatable output. They'll be relatively consistent, depending upon your data being good that goes into the agent, but you get some consistency there. And obviously data, I think everybody on this call will appreciate the value in understanding and reading your data, whether it be financial performance or budget data or service charge data, whatever the case may be. But if you're unable to garner insights from your data, then obviously really, really good use of AI is to try and understand what your data is telling you. So look, how to use AI. And we're going to be focusing and working with AI assistants today specifically. And there's a fundamental principle, I think, which determines how to interact with an AI assistant. And that is a principle which is context. Context is everything. So the way that I like to think about working with AI is if imagine you've got a new starter joining your team or joining your business, and they're brilliant. They're very intelligent, they're very capable, they're very quick at doing tasks and very quick workers. But that new starter on day one isn't going to know about your organization. It's not going to understand the client. It's not going to know about your policies and your processes. It's not going to understand about the business. So you're going to have to give it your data. You're going to have to teach it your standards, and you're going to have to teach that individual the right documents. Working with AI assistants is no different. I often find my job is to help educate the AI, to help it understand more about what I want it to do so that it can perform better. And when AI makes mistakes, invariably it's because I haven't done the job of educating it sufficiently enough so that it properly understands. So it properly understands what you want it to do. And there is a structure that you can use in order to ensure that you help your AI assistant understand what it is. And that's known as prompting. All a prompt is an instruction. And there's many versions of these, but I like this one. So when you instruct your AI assistants, there's some things to be considerate of. And that is, give it a role. Tell your AI assistant what job it's going to have. You are an FM data analyst responsible for service charge reconciliation. That will help the AI understand, okay, so it's FM, so I need to understand about buildings, I understand needs about finance, I'm probably going to be analysing some data. So the AI understands. To make an extreme point, if you said you're a stand-up comedian, the AI is going to be acting in a very, very different way. So your ability to determine what role that it's going to be playing during your work really helps the AI understand what you want out of it. So the first point is give it a job, give it a role. Secondly, the task. I want you to analyze all of these invoices, and I want you to, analyze all of the invoices and split out your labor versus material costs. Okay. So again, just be as specific as you possibly can about what you want it to do, and try and make the task narrow. Don't ask it to do this much. Try and make the task as specific as you possibly can, because you significantly improve the quality of the output. If I go back to that employee on their first day with your team, if you said, I want you to go and write a monthly report, analyze this service charge data, I want you to look at the reactives, I want you to figure out what's going on with the BMS, and I want you to come back to me and update me on all of them, chances are you're probably not going to get a great output. The same is true for AI. Give it a single task to do at a time. The constraints, and this isn't necessarily about constraints, this is about the standards. What do you want it to work to? If it's UK based, you might want it to work to a particular standard, or you might want it to work to an IWFM best working practice, or you might want for it to work to the Building Safety Act 2022. So your constraints is your opportunity in order to educate the AI, box it in a little bit, and just help it understand if there's anything that it should be, any guidance it should be working within. And then the last piece is your output. And depending upon the solution that you use, depends upon the output that you can get. Now, pretty much all language models, you can say, write me a report. You can say, create me a table. You can say, I don't know, write me an executive summary with an introduction and so on and so forth. But depending upon which AI assistant that you're using, you'll potentially get different outputs. So I'm using Claude today, and I'll show you the array of different things that you can get Claude to do for you. But you could say, build me a dashboard. You can say, create me a PowerPoint presentation. You could say, build me a piece of software, depending upon the tool that you can use. So your output is the opportunity for you to be really explicit with it in determining what you actually want out the back end of it. And I have got lots of examples of those, and you'll see what a well-structured prompt looks like. Just some notes really, and some rules to keep you safe. I'm using my own personal. I've AI assistant today. But I've got all demo data, so this is all artificial data that I've made up for the benefit of the presentation. But obviously, just make sure you're using, if you're at work, you're using approved tools that have been issued to you by the company. Human in the loop is really important. Think again about that employee on the first day. It's the first time they've ever worked with you. You're probably going to check what they do. The same is true for AI. You have to check what it does. You have to gain confidence in the AI's ability to do the job. You have to mark its homework. And also, there's a size element to that. As in, if you're going to ask an AI to analyze millions of pounds worth of data, you're going to really want to check the output, because it's a high stakes task. Again, always check the output, make sure you do, depending upon the size of the task. You know, if you're sending an email or sending some data to a load of executives, then obviously you want to make sure that you're really checking that, because you're responsible for the AI's output. And again, just know your organization's policy. You know, make sure that if they haven't got one, you speak to the right people, make sure that you're working within the confines of the guidelines that your company has created. Last little bit, and then we will jump into the demo. So look, this is just a touch on AI strategy. So look, today we're looking at personal productivity tools. We're going like, how can we use AI to help us do something practical? Okay, how can we use AI to help alleviate some of the administrative burden? But personal productivity, the application of AI in personal productivity, is not organizational AI. You know, the difference being that when you're thinking about AI to be introduced in an organization, there's a strategic intent to that. You've got a strategy. There's a specific capability in our business or our team that we want to target. There's a specific problem, or there's a specific client challenge that we've got that we want to target. That's organizational AI, and that will need a strategy, and it will need a team of individuals, and you'll need to write your business cases. So the two are not the same. Personal productivity tools can form part of an organization's AI strategy, but in order to solve organizational problems, you need an AI strategy really for the organization. But today we're going to be focused on personal productivity. And now I suppose the last piece is, this is the way that I look at intelligence, is that AI is a new way to access intelligence in a way that we have never had before. So it's consistent. Let's say, for example, that you wanted somebody within your team to run a weekly report on your help desk data to show you how we're performing. Now, one week that person might have 5 minutes. The next week that person might have 2 hours to do that task. One week that person might be on holiday and you'll have somebody else doing it. So what happens is you get these relative inconsistencies with regards to the individuals or team's performance. Through the introduction of AI, it gives you the opportunity to establish some consistency. So you can have that agent, for example, do an analysis exactly the same way every single day. And also at depth, it would go as deep as you want every single time. Again, back to that, it will look at the entire data set for you every single time. But then obviously, if you've done that for one site and you want to scale it, then you can take the agent that you've built and you can scale it across an entire portfolio, and everybody's going to get their reactive data analyzed in the exact same way across an entire portfolio. So, this is artificial intelligence is a utility in the same way that you switch on a switch to get lights or you open a tap to get water. We can now press a button and essentially get intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the demo now. We're going to be looking at an asset list. We're going to improve it. We're going to fill some gaps. We're going to add some costs for budgeting. We're going to analyze some service sheets. We're going to look at help desk data. We're going to write a report. We're going to build a dashboard. Okay. That, depending upon the time, I'm going to skip to I'm not going to have time to sense check and audit the output of every single AI's response. Obviously, for the benefit of the demo, I'm just going to push it through, but I want to showcase the art of the possible so you can get an appreciation for the different things that you can do with AI. Just going to stop sharing and then reshare my screen. Helen, if you wouldn't mind just sort of giving me a thumbs up if you can see my new screen.
I can see it. It says, "Hey there, Ricky."
Oops. It's gone.
Now you've sort back.
Oh, sorry. Pitfalls of a live demo. Right, let me have another go. Okay, sorry. Okay. I'm going to share the whole screen, so this just flick up. You see that?
Yep, there it is. Yeah, new chat with Claude.
Good. Okay, so that is my Claude. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give Claude some instructions and some things to do, and we're going to see how it performs. I've got some prompts already written, and we'll talk through the prompts as we go so you can see what a good prompt looks like. Okay, so look, here the first prompt is, you are an FM. So just quickly, all of these AI assistants look the same. You've got a chat box, you've got the opportunity to upload documentation, you can, you can speak to your AI now, so you don't even have to type anymore. So that's a massive value. I speak to my AIs all the time now as opposed to typing because it's quicker. You can select your model. I've got a smaller model today because I want it to move at speed. I've also selected a smaller effort level because I want it to be quick, but you can select if you're doing some bigger tasks, you're analyzing, loads of rows of data, you might want to use something bigger. Fable 5 is the biggest. You can do some research to figure out which model to use. The bigger, the more powerful the model, the more expensive it potentially is, or the quicker that you'll run out of your tokens. Okay. So here's the first prompt. You're an FM asset manager, so I've given it this role. I want you to analyze the asset list for completeness and data quality. I want you to get inconsistent or duplicated data. I want you to come back with a rough completeness score per column, and I want you to provide me with a short summary of what you found. So we're going to give it that. I'm going to ask it to skip to the end, quick answer, so we can push this through, and then it's going to give me my output. Now, what you can see in some of these tools is that you'll see that actually it's understood what I've wanted. So, and it's actually starting to work through. Didn't get time to do that, so I pushed it to the end. But if you click that button, you can actually sometimes start to see the way that it's thinking, and it will reason about the problem that you've given it. So it'll go, oh, I understand what you want. What it wants me to do is he wants me to analyze this data, and I'm going to look at this. That's called chain of thought. And when you open that up, you can actually see how the AI is thinking. So it gives you some reassurance that it understands your problem statement. Okay, so look, what have we got here? We've got an asset register quality review for a business park. It's found that we've got some duplicates in here. We've got some, we've got some issues with regards to the description. We've got some missing data fields. Okay, so we've got manufacturer models missing. We've got installation date is missing for some assets. We've got some inconsistency in our formatting. Anybody that's spent any time in asset registers, this will, resonate. We've got block B in some locations, others is block B. We've got some issues with regards to, we've got a small R there and a big R there. So look, AHU versus air handling unit, right? All sorts of issues. Okay, so we've got all sorts of problems there that we want to solve. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, right, I want you to clean this up for me. Now, obviously, if you've got a particular data policy or you want it to be cleaned in a specific way, then obviously you can give this more information. You can say, actually, this is the naming convention that we want you to use, and I want you to apply these names to all of these assets. Well, I've asked it to just clean the list, standardize categories and criticality, tidy naming and locations, fill the gaps where safe, and flag every record a human should check. I've asked it to output a clean table plus the list of things to flag. So here we go. Look, you can start to see it's thinking. There we go. I've pushed it through, so it's going to very quickly come back with a response for me. Okay, cool. So look, here's our table. So it's tidied up the records for me and it's given me some consistency. It hasn't filled out where it's been unable to provide me with information. It's just left these things blank. Okay, so we don't want it to guess at what the manufacturer is because it's important for us to know. We don't want it to guess what the installation date is because it's important for us to know. But it's done the job of basically tidying up the language used. So look, it said, I've changed this to block B. I've changed all the names to air handling units. I've changed the criticality ratings to, I've rewritten it for you to make it more consistent. So I've given you a nice, consistent asset register. Okay, great. So what we need to do now is we've got gaps in this asset list that we need to fill out. So the next prompt is going to be, right, colleague has replied with information about the asset data, and I'm going to get you that email. So I've got an artificial email that I wrote, again, for the benefit of the demonstration. I'll just quickly show you what that looks like. So I've for the benefit of the demo, I've emailed somebody on site and said, I've got these gaps. Can you please just go around site and can you just come back to me with the the right information? So this person has come back to me and said, here's the answers to all the questions around the challenges that you've got in your asset list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that email to the AI. The principle that I want to make here is that, as I said, we were talking about unstructured data in the opening. Service sheets is just a world of unstructured data. Right? There's loads of really relevant information in the service sheet, and the same is emails. If you think about all the emails that you get, it's all unstructured data, but they're really valuable. A year's worth of emails and the ability to analyze that gives you opportunity to look at patterns. Where have you got consistent challenges? Where have you got consistent opportunities to add value? So AI is really good at actually looking through unstructured data and structuring it on your behalf. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've basically gone, right, here's the email, changes made from the email. Here's the email, and I want you to basically fill out, which is a good thing, a couple of things it resolves only partially. Okay, fine. So we haven't necessarily resolved everything there, but it's filled out some of our pieces, bits and pieces that we've got in there. And it gives me so here's some things that it's made from the email. So it's basically changed some of the names of some of the information in there. It's given us a corrected installation date. It's changed the condition of some of these assets. It's done a criticality reclassification based on the email that we've got. So what we could then do is we could take the response of this, send it back to the team, get them to go around and check the data, get the response back, and then put it back in. AI is great at this unstructured data piece. Okay, let's go on to the next step. So the next step is now going to be, okay, we want to now add some costs for the benefit of our budgeting. Okay, I know that obviously budgeting is a sizable task that we have to do. So I've got some, again, artificial costs that I've made up here. I've got air handling units, I've got chiller costs, I've got some lift costs, etc., etc. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop that into the chat, and I'm going to say to it, right, okay, I want you to basically add these CapEx costs, and I've got some invoices for some maintenance spend. There we go. So I've got a table, and I've got some invoices for some maintenance spend, and I want you to put these costs into our asset list. So then we get to the point where we've got like a bit of a budget forming. Okay, so we can actually start to consider our forward maintenance review. We can actually start to consider where we need to invest and what our budgets need to look like. So look, here's the prompt. Here's our CapEx replacement cost reference and 3 recent maintenance invoices. For each asset, add an estimated replacement cost and expected life from the reference, and pull the actual maintenance spend from the invoices onto the assets they relate to. Mark replacement figures clearly as estimates and not quotes, and output the list with the new columns and a total. Whilst it's thinking about that, I'm just going to scroll up. The reason that we stay in one long chat thread when we're working with AI is because the AI will remember the context that you gave it. So I've told it that you're an FM asset manager, and I've then asked it to analyze data throughout. I don't need to give it that context a second time, because the AI is going to remember everything that you've discussed with it in that specific thread. So it's going to remember all the context and all the information that you've given it. So when you are working with your AIs, you don't have to work as hard on your prompts. You can appreciate the fact that it remembers that you're an FM, and you're focused on facilities management. Okay, so look, here's our little table. So we've got the asset register, and it's given us a replacement cost table. Great. It's taken the information out of those maintenance invoices that we gave it, and it's put it into this table here. So we've got the maintenance invoices. It's given us some references of when the invoices were applicable from as well. It's given us the dates. It's also given us some expected life expectancy. Obviously, there's lots of standards that you can use in order to determine what the life expectancy is. CIBSI being obviously the reference guide that we invariably use. And it's put our CapEx plan in. So now we've got full table with a nice tidy asset data, and we've got estimated CapEx spend, and we've got our maintenance. Great. So we're in a really, really strong place so far. Okay, so let's move into a slightly different problem statement. We're going to deviate away ever so slightly. So assume we're happy. We've got our CapEx plan for all of the assets on site. I'm then going to ask it to do something slightly different. I'm going to say, right, I want you to have a look at some service sheets that I've got. Again, the point around unstructured data. It's amazing at analyzing unstructured data. So I've said, look, here's 3 engineer service sheets. I want you to pull out the key findings and just see if we can just identify any repeated issues. Now, for the benefit of the demonstration, obviously I've used just 3 service sheets, but depending upon the AI system that you use and how powerful it is, you could potentially put, dozens of service sheets in here. Once you get into the world of putting hundreds or thousands, you might have to start thinking about a bespoke solution. But certainly if you're wanting to analyze, potentially dozens of service sheets, then most AI assistants, if you select the right model, a bigger one, is going to be able to do that for you. Okay, so look, here's the output. I've asked it to look at the service sheets and what it's come back with. AHU3 in block B. So it's adhering to the terminology that we used above. It's using the same reference. Obviously, it's used block B and it's used AHU3. So the first insight, the fan bearing has now failed 4 times in 6 months. High vibration and out spec belt tension. The second insight, that the condenser coils are heavily fouled for the second time this quarter. So maybe your chillers, obviously they're external, maybe you're next to a building site which has just started, and your condenser fins and your condenser coils are getting filled with dirt. And passenger lift 1, nobody likes taking the stairs. Obviously, lifts are always relatively emotive when they fail. The door fault has reoccurred across 3 separate visits, so you need to look into that. So we've now got a little action list. I asked it to provide me with a short action list. I wasn't specific about what I wanted it to do. I just wanted to see, I wanted to create a bit of an action plan. So we've now been able to analyze our service sheets as well. Okay, the last piece, this is when we start to look at structured data. So let's look at our help desk data. So I've said it, look, can you have a look at help desk tickets, right, for the same site? So I'm going to drop this help desk data in there. I'm going to get it to do what it needs to do. I'll quickly show you what this demo help desk data looks like. There we go. I've got some ticket IDs, which I'm sure most people will be familiar with what this looks like. I've got some dates, I've got some locations, the category, the priority levels, some descriptions of what's going on. Look, we've got our chiller 2 in there, condenser coils, we've got AHU3 in there, we've got lift 1 in there, the status of the tickets and how long it took to solve. Now, invariably, you'd have a start date and an end date in there, and you'd have to figure it out, but I've tidied this up or made this overly simplistic for the benefit of the demonstration. Okay, here we go. So it's given me what I asked for was identify the busiest assets and locations, any repeat issues, and output a short brief for me. So here's all my help desk data. Just give me a bit of an overview about what's going on. And look, it's saying, look, we've got 4 tickets escalating in severity for our AHU. We've got repeated issues with regards to our lift. We've got 3 tickets raised there. We've got a car park lighting problem, 3 tickets raised. We've got some issues with regards to the solutioning time on particular asset types. So look, car parks are taking 49 and 52 hours. So look, you've got the ability to also analyze the structured data really, really, really quickly. Now, let's assume that we want to put all of that into a report. We're doing a report for our line manager report, or we're doing a report for the tenants on site, or we're doing a report for the client or somebody of that nature. I've given it a slightly different hat now. I've asked it to be an FM account manager. Okay, so we're not a data analyst anymore. We're not looking at asset data. I want it to be an FM account manager. So be a bit more considerate about the way that you describe things, I suppose, is what I'm saying. So use everything in this conversation. Asset data, service sheets, help desk data. Write a 1-page monthly report for the client, summarising key issues, actions, and recommendations. Okay, concise and client ready. Now, it's going to start thinking about what I've asked it to do, and it's going to start pulling in some more tools. So here we go. There we go. I'm thinking through whether there should be a Word document. It's decided that it's going to create a Word document. So it's pulling in what's called a skill. A skill is the little instruction that it follows. So I'm going to use this skill whenever a user wants to create a file. Okay, so we've got the skill that it's pulling on here. And again, you'll see this in some of the AI solutions that you use. You'll see it start to use different skills in order to do different tasks. If I asked it to do a PowerPoint presentation, it would use PowerPoint presentation skills to do a particular task. It's running a script here. So the script is basically code. So it's now creating for me in a code format what the document's going to look like. And now it's going to render it. So it's going to take the code, take the instruction, and it's going to create me the 1-pager. It's doing a little visual check. So it's doing some quality assurance here just to make sure it looks good, looking clean, copying the final report, and then it's going to present the file back to me on the right-hand side. There we go. Okay, great. So look, we've got the report, Meridian Business Park, which is the artificial site that we've created. It's giving me a summary. It said, look, site operations remain stable with no unplanned building closures, but we had 3 reactive maintenance visits were completed at a combined cost of £2,000. We've got the issues in there around the AHU, that the chiller 2 is a problem. We've got mention of the plant passenger lift number 1. We've got key issues. Again, it's pulling those key issues out. It's talking about the actions that we've taken, but then it started to go into some recommendations. Maybe get a quote for the replacement of the AHU3 fan assembly. Looks like we've got a problem there. Clear the plant room ventilation louver and move chiller 2 to quarterly. So it said, look, we've got condenser cleaning problems, right? We've got dirt in the air, so we need to increase the amount of maintenance that we're doing on that condenser coil just to make sure that it's clean. So look, we've got a really nice little report there. Again, if you want to change the aesthetics, you can, you can ask it to put it in a particular format. If you've got the format of a report that you normally use, that's really good context. To go back to that context, if you're working with that employee on day one, you can give them a copy of the report that you did last month and go, I want the report to look like this, or use this as a template. You can do the same thing with AI. So you can say to the AI, right, I want you to write the report in this structure. These are the last 3 copies of the monthly report that we do for the client. When you write the report, can you write it in this format? Now, the last thing I've asked it to do is a little bit more complex, so it might take a little bit more time, but I've basically asked it to turn this into a visual, simple dashboard. Now, if we go back to the point that I made around prompt engineering, and the prompt is the role, the task, the constraint, and the output. Because I'm using Claude, I know that Claude can create dashboards, and I know that Claude can do some nice visuals. I also know that in ChatGPT, I think when you're using Codex, you can do the exact same thing. So you can actually get different solutions to create you nice dashboards. So depending upon the tool that you're using, depends upon the output. Now, I know that Claude can do me a nice little dashboard. So I've said to it, look, create me a visual dashboard. I want to see assets by criticality. I want to see help desk tickets by location. And I want to see estimated cost by category. And here we go. It's giving me total assets. It's giving me some hoverable little graphics that I can hover over. I can look at the help desk tickets. I can look at the different tickets raised by location. I can hover over the CapEx plan that we've got here and all the expenditure. I can, I can chop and change this. Now I could go back and say, right, I now want you to, I want you to put those visuals. I want you to put those visuals into the report. Or I could get it to download a dashboard, an interactive dashboard that I can share with my team, and they can flick through it and see what's going on. So look, I'll scroll back up to the top. I mean, that was maybe 25 minutes. And in that time, we've been able to analyze an asset list, identify where we've got consistency and quality problems, make some repairs to it, get some information from somebody from site, get some of the gaps updated. We've been able to flag where we still need to apply some fixes to it. We've been able to build a bit of a CapEx plan, and a maintenance, have some sight on our maintenance budget costs. We've been able to have a look at service sheets and identify patterns, if we're doing any root cause analysis. We've looked at our help desk tickets. We've looked at, we've created a nice report, and we've also done a nice dashboard, all in, 25 minutes, half an hour. So from a personal productivity point of view, using this in the right way in order to alleviate some of that administrative pressure, the problem is the administrative pressure, is really, really valuable. So if you can take anything away from today, provided you've got the right tool and the right policy and you're using it in the right way, you're not going to break this. So just try it. And you'd be surprised at what you can get these AI assistants to do for you. Thank you everybody for watching. Helen, I believe we've now got some time for some questions if there are any.
Sorry, just bring my camera back on. We do have some questions. If I could ask you to move to the next slide, though, that has the CPD code on it.
No problem at all.
So people can just make a note of that while we go through the questions.
No problem.
Okay, so first question that we have is, how do you approach security risks around employees disclosing company data into personal AI tools?
Really good question, and you have to speak to your technology and/or your technology team. You have to speak to your technology team about making sure that you've got the right policies and the right guidance and the right framework in place. A lot of the larger technology providers, Microsoft and such like, when they provide their licenses, they will provide you with some assurances around enterprise data protection. So they will say our licenses are completely secure. So that's how you create, you ensure that you've got your policies in place to ensure that any data that your employees put in is secure. And then the next element to that is about educating them. You know, what I think invariably what happens is people get familiar with their own personal AI assistants, and then they might just use their personal AI assistants in order to do maybe some work that they shouldn't be doing. It's really important to ensure that you educate your employees and push them and guide them into using those technologies that are issued through the employer. But provided you've got a policy and you've got the guidance and you've got the right tool in place and you've got the right you know information going out to your individuals to use it, then that will significantly reduce the amount of risk that you've got from a data protection point of view.
Perfect, thank you. And then we've got a couple that are starting to come in thick and fast now. So just a reminder, anything we don't get to, we will publish afterwards. So we've got one. Can you quickly talk about the merits of the different AI assistants for different types of work?
Absolutely. All AI systems are built on language models, and the main difference is the power of the language model and the tools that they have available to them. Claude has got lots of tools. So as you can see there, I created a dashboard, I created a PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, I created a report. But then obviously it's more expensive, right, to use Claude, and it uses more tokens. You'll run out of room quicker. Arguably, depending upon what you're doing, you could quite as easily use something less costly. I know that ChatGPT, you can do a lot of work in ChatGPT. So I would say really it depends on the sort of work that you want to do. If you're doing lots of big, heavy data analysis, if you're wanting to create dashboards, if you're wanting to, if you're using AI a lot, then you're probably going to be wanting to get a more premium or expensive solution. If you are just working your way through, you're just starting out, you probably don't need something expensive. You could probably start with a cheaper subscription. But I invariably lean into Claude.
Thank you. And we've actually got a question from the PD sponsor, which is Quadrelect. And that says, for heads of sustainability, how do they balance the impact on environmental resources and the efficiency of these new tools? Are there any reports on responsible use to balance the business case and show best practice for both the planet and reputational reasons?
Good question. I think it's well known that AI data centers, broadly speaking, consume a lot of energy. I would be ensuring that you use any of your AI tooling responsibly, and that's not not just in data and the way that you use it, but also making sure that you're not unnecessarily using artificial intelligence. You can get AI to do absolutely everything for you, but invariably there is a responsible way to use these tooling. So I would say make sure that you're considerate. The same way that if you live 2-minute walk from Tesco's, you probably wouldn't drive there. You'd walk, and we need to apply the same responsible consideration to the use of AI.
Thank you. So another one. The only thing I'm finding with these techniques is that if you produce too much output, it becomes very difficult to fact check or assurance check the outputs, as there simply isn't enough time. It becomes important to only create outputs that you have time to check. So not so much a question as a open for comment.
I do agree. And that is about, look, and let's say that if you're going to analyze 100,000 rows of data, it's going to be really difficult for you to check it, right? And arguably, it'd probably take you just as long to check it as it would do. So invariably, what I would say is this is about building trust. Let's go back to that scenario of your employee on day one. Day one, you might not trust them to do a decent job because they don't know. The same is true with your AI. It's about building trust in the AI's ability. What you can do, as opposed to going through every single line of data, is that you can do some spot checks. Make sure that you pick up some. We see this a lot when we're looking at unstructured data. If I take 100 service sheets and I get an AI to read them all, there's a lot of risk that's going to go wrong there. Right? So what you want to do is you want to pick some of the service sheets, maybe the worst ones, and just check what the AI's extracted. So this is about building trust in the AI's capability and the AI's output. And you can do spot checks and sense checks to make sure that you're happy with the work that the AI is doing.
Oh, thank you. And another one, is there any way we can connect time series data from BMS to AI tools? Would there be any cost limitations because of the scale?
There are an absolute wealth of products available on the market now that will do those sorts of things, that will connect a language model, an AI assistant, into your BMS. Some Googling you will definitely find some products available. I believe one is Bueno, that is relatively well known, where you have, it's difficult to look through loads and loads of data. So the obvious application of an AI assistant is you speak to your BMS. Tell me about the top 5 problems that I potentially got today, or tell me about the top 3 energy consuming issues that we've got. There's a wealth of products available on the market that will enable you to do so, and they are growing almost by the week. The number of different problems you can apply AI to.
Thank you. Next one, and there's still a couple. We'll try and get through as many as we can. How do you ensure that something with as much data as an asset list, that the AI hasn't missed something out or changed something? I'm not sure I trust accuracy yet.
Yeah, and again, it's trust, right? There's a there's a there's a there's a This is about building trust in the AI's capability. Now, I was using, but you can satisfy some of that trust with the model that you choose. So, and you can do reading and research a lot around models. I was using Sonnet 5. Now, Sonnet 5 in the Anthropic is a relatively small model. However, Anthropic also has some big models. And the newest one they've got is called Fable 5, an Opus 4.8. And they all make them sound complicated. But ultimately, you've got some models which are big, chunky, and expensive. We've got Ferraris, and we've got some models which are Robin Reliant. No offense when you've got Robin Reliant. Now, this one's going to be cheap and it will do a bit of a job for you, but it might not be a great runner, and you're going to have a really big expensive. So you can satisfy some of the concerns that you will have in the AI's ability to operate by choosing just a big, more expensive. An asset list is an important document. You're going to want to use a really big, heavy, and complex model in order to do your analysis on that. So that doesn't take away from sense checking and spot checking and making sure you're happy with its ability. But if you're looking at something as important as an asset list, I'd want to use a really powerful model to be able to do so. Fable 5 is currently on the market, the most powerful AI model available to consumers.
Okay, we're down to our last two, although one of the questions is a 4-part question. So I'll do the shorter one first. And that is, this individual saw that CBRE had its own AI called Nexus. What does that do?
Nexus, that's Smart FM. We've got a UK director of Smart FM. I can put you in touch with that individual, and you can have a conversation if that's suitable, Helen.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, last one. As I say, it's a 4-parter, so they're happy if you can't get to all of them. So what AI skills will become essential for FM professionals over the next 5 years is the first one.
5 years is a long time in the world of AI. All I can say is, get used to using these AI assistants, understand how they operate, understand where the risks are with using them, but get really familiar with what they're good at and what they're not good at. You're not going to break it, right? So, play with it a lot and be inquisitive and just try things out. Can you do this? Can you do that? So I think that's a really essential skill of just being inquisitive with AI. The only reason I know, I've done some training and some courses, but I spend a lot of time just when there's something new comes out, I just check it and see what happens and try it with different scenarios. So I definitely think checking it. I think more broadly speaking, understand where you want to apply AI. What are the top 3 areas of your day to day or your month to month, or what's the top 3 areas of your job role where you think, oh, I wish there was a way to try and solve this? And so whenever you're trying something new, you can go, do you know what? I'm going to put an asset list in and see what it does. So being really familiar with which problems you want to solve with AI, but also be inquisitive and try using those AI tools in different ways. Both of those are really good ways to prepare yourself for what might come out of the tech community.
Okay. The second one is, how should universities and apprenticeship programs adapt to prepare future FM professionals?
I think so. How apprentices adapt? I mean, look, we have to. There's a really nice balance, actually. This is a generational piece. I've got a niece, and she has been using AI for 4 years since it's come out. She was using it through college and through school, and it's second nature to her. Okay, and it's she just uses it. She knows how to effectively use it, and I think for the benefit of apprentices, and I think for the benefit of young people coming through the industry, they're going to land in industry and in workplaces with a greater level of familiarization with using these tools. And I think that adds loads of value. Where we see massive adoption within different teams and different functions within the business or across businesses, it's where we've invariably got people who are familiar with it and using it. So I think really understanding how, again, be inquisitive, understanding how to use those tools so that when you do land in a professional working environment and somebody says, "Oh, I've got this asset list problem," your immediate response is, "Let me have a look," because you know how to apply this tool. So I think really empower yourself with understanding how to apply this technology.
Okay, we've got two more left and then we've answered them all. But so if we keep it nice and short, I think we can just smash these questions out. So it says, if you're an estates manager with a limited budget, what would be the first AI implementation you would invest in today?
Personal productivity tool is a really low cost way of getting yourself on the first rung of the ladder. Whether or not it's a Microsoft Copilot or it's a Claude or a ChatGPT corporate license, I think they require more. Just get your hands on a AI system and start playing with it. For a few £100s a year, you can start to get in a level of appreciation for what these things can do. So I would say get yourself a personal productivity tool before you start considering an AI transformation project, or before you start considering, the introduction of AI agents. Just dabble with these solutions and just get used to them. And like I said, they're only a few £100s a year, a lot of these licenses.
Okay, and the last one, which I think comes up quite often with the concern of will AI replace people and stuff like that, is will AI change the role of an FM or simply remove administrative workload?
I I I I believe it's going to change the role of an FM. I believe that there was a time when we didn't spend all of our time in Excel spreadsheets. There was a time long ago where we didn't spend our time just immersed in administrative work. And I think what AI enables us to do is enables us to alleviate some of that administrative work. What we should really be doing is we should be out speaking to our clients, speaking to our occupants, speaking to our teams. And you know, the hope would be that the introduction of AI frees us from some of that administrative work so that we can actually start to get back out into the real world and away from the computers to deliver better services and operate in a more personable way.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the attendees. Thank you for your questions. Huge thank you to Ricky, who has given us his time today and gone through all of that stuff on AI. Hopefully it's been a big help. The recording will be available. I will also be posting it onto the People Development LinkedIn page for those of you that want to go back in and read some of those instructions in your own time. But yes, thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a good weekend, and we hope to see you at one of our other events.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks all.